Hi everyone, this is Rosie, and welcome to the Geneva Crossbody Bag Sew-Along. We're up to the segment in the sew-along, which is to create the front lining slip pocket. That would be step 19 in your instructions. You want to take the piece for your slip pocket, it should be 11.5 by 11 inches, and you're going to fold it and press it down. And then you're going to take the piece of fleece that you've cut, and you're going to slip that piece of fleece right up to the folded edge of the fabric, and then you'll fuse it in place. After you've done that, you'll go over to your sewing machine and sew along this folded edge 1/4 of an inch from the folded edge. After you've completed the top stitching, you want to find the center of your slip pocket, and you also want to find the center of the lining piece. And then you'll take the pocket and you'll match the centers. So I have the center down here marked with the white chalk line, and I have the center here marked with a erasable pen. And then you'll clip it in place, and you're going to sew down this center mark here. So when you do, you want to back stitch at both the top and the bottom. So clip everything into place and then go down to your sewing machine. Right now your sides will be extending off the edge of the lining, and that's okay for right now. I have the slip pocket sewn to the main lining down the center, and over here I've actually basted the sides of the main lining to the slip pocket, and now I'm going to cut off the excess. So here's everything all trimmed down. Now I'm going to take my two gusset pieces. One end should be 4 inches and the other end should be 3 inches on both pieces. So I'm going to place them right sides together, and then I'm going to sew this with a 1/2 inch seam right across the 4-inch end. Then once it's sewn down, I will press the seam open, and then on the other side I will top stitch 1/8 of an inch away from that seam on each side of the gusset. I have the two gusset pieces sewn together with a 1/2 inch seam at the 4-inch end of the gusset, and then I top stitched away from the seam 1/8 of an inch on both sides. So we're up to step number 22 in the written instructions, which is sewing the gusset into the lining. Now you'll need to have the center point on the main lining panel here, so I marked that with a pin, and you're going to be sewing your gusset in with a 1/2 inch seam. So I marked both ends here with a pin 1/2 inch out from the edge. And then I have my gusset here, and I also drew 1/2 inch lines on these sides here, and you'll see why I did that in a minute. So I'm going to turn this around, and I'm going to match up my center seam here with the pin, and I'm going to start putting in some clips. And I'm only going to clip right up to the point where that pin is. Then I'm going to pivot, and I'm going to start clipping this end of the gusset right at the top of that lining there, making sure that all my edges are even. Then I'm going to start clipping down. And then right here in this corner, this is where we're going to be pivoting with the sewing machine. And the reason why I put this little line here is because I'm going to take a little clip right into that corner, but I don't want to go past that 1/2 inch seam. And taking that clip is going to help me set this in a little easier. So I'm going maybe 1/4 of an inch in, and then I can clip a little bit closer to where I'll be needing to pivot. So one there, and I'll put one in over here. Now when you sew, you're going to start at the middle, and you're going to sew with a 1/2 inch seam all the way out to that pivot point. Then you're going to drop your needle in right where you're going to turn, and then you'll pivot the whole piece with the needle down in the sewing machine, and then you'll sew 1/2 inch up this side. Then when you're done sewing that side, you can go ahead and pin this one in place the same exact way that you did this one. So now I have both sides clipped in, ready to be sewn, and again you'll be sewing with a 1/2 inch seam all the way across. Then when you get to that point right there where you took in the little clip, you'll drop your needle right in that spot right there, and then you'll pivot in the sewing machine, and then you'll sew up the other side. So here's the gusset all sewn in. This is what it should look like on the back, so you see that you have your nice sharp edges here where you dropped the needle into the machine before you pivoted. And then if you want to check yourself out to see how well you did, you can pop the lining out this way and see if you have a nice square corner. And if you have a nice square corner there, then you did everything correctly. Then you want to take this point right here, this pivot point, and you want to follow straight up in a straight line and put a mark here. So just take your pen, mark that point, and that should be your pivot point when you pin in the zipper side of the lining. So go ahead and clip in the zipper side and sew it exactly the same way that you just did this side. I now have the gusset clipped into the zipper side, and I have my pivot points all set. I did my little clip in 1/4 of an inch on both sides. So now again you're going to do the same thing. You'll sew 1/2 inch away from the edge, and you'll start from this center out, and then you'll pivot right at your pivot point, and then you'll sew up. So I have the gusset sewn to the zipper side, and again, if you turn this right side out and you just check your corners, you want them to be nice and sharp. And if they're nice and sharp, then it's done correctly. Thanks for joining me in this segment of the Sew Along. Please like and subscribe.